Welcome to the Leadership Table podcast. My name is Chad Reyes. I'm so excited to have you on today's podcast. And today we have our friend, our business partner, Elijah Lowe. He's a phenomenal mind when it comes to utilizing AI and leading in an AI-driven world. And that's what today we're going to have a conversation. We're going to be talking about how do we lead in an AI-driven world? And I want to hand it over to Elijah just to share a little bit about his background, a little bit about what, his experience of how he got to where he is today. And then we're going to jump into a conversation. So Elijah, why don't you take it from there?
Hi, Chad. Thank you very much. This is a really good time to be involved in AI. A little bit about my background. I actually have a business background. My undergraduate was actually in finance, investment, and banking, but I've always been involved in technology. Starting out with building machine learning models for large consulting firms, and then moving on to set up my own IT consulting as well as development companies. And when ChatGPT was launched, I started getting a lot of interest and in using AI in with my clients to improve efficiency and productivity, and it's been growing since then.
That's awesome. Yeah, Elijah, as you and I, we've gone around the world actually talking about leading through AI and leading in an AI-driven world. We one of the things you and I recognize, and I'd love to just kind of talk about it with our listeners today, is one of the things that you and I recognize is that so many people were so focused on the technology of AI, but not focused on how does AI impact how you lead. Can you kind of take our listeners through that journey of really, like, you remember when we were out in, I think it was in Canada, and we're speaking at a conference, and then we come back and we said, we really need to, we're so far ahead in what we're thinking, but people are really trying to figure out how does this impact them to now. Can you kind of talk a little bit about that?
Chad, you're absolutely right. I think people have a tendency to focus too much on the technology aspect of AI and not enough on the leadership and the people part of AI. And if you think about it, AI is a very different technology than what the world has ever seen. Okay, for the most part, all our other previous technology impacted operations, impacted manufacturing, impacted different elements of the business process, but most of them had some people element to it, but none of them have as much people element to it as what AI does. And so I think when companies approach this as a technology project, that's where they fail, because it's going to be relegated to the IT department to try to figure out how to incorporate this new technology. When the reality of it is that AI is really very much a people a people process driven implementation. And so because of that, it's almost like implementing a new culture in a company. That's the best way to describe it. So if companies don't focus enough on the people element of the AI, that's where they fail in the AI projects. And companies who get it right are the ones that succeed, because it's not possible to implement AI without it being heavily integrated with the people part of your organization.
Yeah. So speak to me a little bit about that. What are you seeing when it comes to how people are approaching AI? Like when a company brings it to, the utilization of it and the integration of it, like what are you seeing on your end of how the human element side of it are receiving it?
So I'll give you a few examples. Okay. Like for example, one example I like to use is commercial real estate. So one of the organizations that was implementing AI, and basically what AI could do was that it could take what used to take one of the analysts, 60 days to underwrite 20 commercial real estate properties. Now AI could do like 100 of them in 4 hours.
Mm.
So massive uh change in productivity here. We're not talking about small incremental 10-20% improvement here. We're
Yeah.
talking about really crazy impact. But where the people element begins to fill the system is when the first organization that I showed these to, they brought in their analysts because they wanted uh, to evaluate this, and they did not tell the analyst anything. They just said, "Hey, have a meeting." And he saw it, and I saw him do a full meltdown on me, Chad. Like literally, he
Yeah.
totally disengaged in the entire meeting because at the back of his mind is like, "Oh my gosh, this is going to take away my job." Now my employers are going to expect me to churn out 100 underwriting in 4 hours. There's
Wow.
no way I can compete with the AI. And so he totally shut down, disengaged from the meeting, and literally took up his cell phone during the meeting and started scrolling Facebook, like right there in the meeting, just
Yeah.
like
Yeah, it's tough.
you know.
Li-
And
Listen,
and then there's
Elijah.
another company that
Yeah,
did the
go ahead.
same thing, but they preempt their employee first and say that, hey, if you can get AI to work, we're gonna give you a share of all the increase in business that comes out of it.
Very different.
Same industry, same, saw the same AI, and this guy was fully engaged and he was going like, man, how do we get this to be implemented right away?
Wow. Yeah. It's a belief system, right? You've heard us talk about it when we go at conferences. Thoughts impact beliefs, beliefs impact behaviors, and behavior create results, right?
Hmm.
The person's belief system around what AI is going to do to their world is so key. So can you walk our listeners through that process where we talk about the four phases of AI? Because I think it's a really important understanding for people to really understand why walking through these phases of AI are so key. And if we don't do them correctly, how they really impact and kind of create some issues at the company.
Absolutely, Chad. And I think that's where people try to skip phases, and you and I have walked through that too because we all want to see the full automation right at the start, right? So we try to just jump ahead into trying to use AI to automate everything. But really, the four phases, I think the first thing that needs to happen is the awareness, and the mindset of the people first. The people is really the first phase. And then the second phase is the process, you know, uh, implementing AI in the process. And then in the third phase, is the automation, and then after that, trying to build a competitive advantage. But I think
Okay.
the first phase is the people phase.
Yeah. So can let's break down each one of those phases. So we have awareness, we have
Hmm.
people productivity, we have processes, right?
Yep.
Efficiencies, and then we have competitive advantage, custom AI, right?
Right.
Tell me why awareness through your lens is so key when it comes to people embracing AI. Because it's easy. Listen, it's very easy for someone to do this and just push it and say, I'm not listening.
Hmm.
But really, you and I both know that at the end of the day, if companies don't embrace it and the team members on those companies don't embrace it, they can't be around for a very long period of time. I say this often, and it's kind of a joke now, but I remember it was a Sunday. Danielle and I were driving with my mom. We came back from church, and we were in Jersey, and my mom was asking me about AI, and I was trying to figure out, like, how do I explain to a 76-year-old woman AI? I did it the only way I knew: meatballs and sausage. So I said, Mom, how much do you pay for a pound of chopped meat? She said about $6. I said, well, picture if you had a store selling it for $18 a pound, three times. Would you buy it? She said, no. If it was the same chop meat, I would not buy it. I would buy it from the existing store. I said, well, that's the reason why AI is so important. Because what happened is it's not that people are going to lose their jobs. It's the lack of adoption to AI that they're going to lose their jobs. Because people won't pay for inefficiencies. Like, I don't know about you, but I'm not willing to pay 4 times more for my car because it was handmade rather than technology driven made.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of explained it to my mom that way. And she's like, well, I understand. I wouldn't pay for $18 for a pound of chopped meat. I said, and nor will anyone else because the market doesn't pay for inefficiency. So
Right.
that being the case, why is awareness so important? And can you speak to it through 2 lenses? I'd like our listeners to hear it through the lens of the employee, but then the employer. So why is awareness to AI so important from an employer perspective and then from an employee perspective?
So, you got to think about it this way. When you become aware of AI, there's 2 possible reactions. Well, actually, there are a few possible reactions to it. So let's go through that. Okay, there's going to be those who gravitate towards it, see something positive, and usually the employer would, those who are more optimistic would see that first, you know. But then there's also those who are going to look at it through fear, and I got to do everything I can to resist this because it's going to take away my job, it's going to, or it's something new that I have to learn that I don't really want to learn something new at this part of my life.
Yeah.
Uh, so, depend on, I think it's a lot easier for employers to see this just because most employers get it. When they see this, they realize the competitive implication of this. Okay.
Mm,
And they know that, immediately when most, especially business owners, when they see what this thing can do, their natural reaction and understanding is that my competitors will be able to price their services and goods significantly less than my cost. Okay, so I need to get on this right away. From an employee perspective, you know, they think totally different. They look at this and go like, oh my gosh, this thing is going to replace me and I'm going to lose my job. If I can resist this longer, I can delay the time in which it's going to replace me.
I know, but think about this now for a moment, and I really want our listeners to hear this. If they delay it, the outcome is still the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is where I'm hoping that leaders are understanding this because, on this podcast, we talk a lot about how mature leaders have mature conversations. If we know that it's coming and it's not going to go away, delaying it is not going to help us. But if we embrace it and as a team member, we learn it and then we can drive efficiency for it. Now, all of a sudden we go from the awareness side of it to the next phase of the 4 phases of AI, which is people productivity, where now you start to learn how to use the AI, embrace the AI and become more effective with the AI, that now it almost like helps you be a more effective team member. I
Mm-hmm.
kind of see it's like having the most well-trained, most efficient MIT graduate that is not getting paid next to
Yep.
you. Time.
Yep. Exactly. And this, I also found something interesting as well, because you see, AI to humans is like what the mind is, you know, but it's not the brain, it's the mind. We all know that, okay? It's the soft stuff, In terms of the impact on business, it's the white collar jobs. But I think what people need to be aware of is that, and there are people who have this mindset, oh, it's only going to replace some of the white collar jobs. It doesn't really impact me because I'm blue collar job. Okay, they don't realize that robotics is coming up very close behind it because
Yeah.
the thing that was holding back robotics up to this point has been the inability to have a mind. Now AI has given robotics the mind, the
Yep.
ability now to do that. So I just had someone give me a cost estimate on when robotics is rolled out, how much is it going to cost per hour? And their estimate right now is 46 cents.
Wow.
So think about this, okay? If you are employing people to do something a robot can do, and you're paying more than 46 cents, okay, you are losing out to your competitors who
Wow.
are being able to price goods and services with a labor cost of 46 cents because they use either some form of AI or robotics to do it.
Yeah. So what do you say to people right now that are kind of struggling through this whole AI discussion? What's your advice to them through a leadership lens?
So my advice to them would be, first of all, this is a time where what's going to distinguish one company from another is going to be leadership. Your
Mm,
ability to lead your executive team and your employees under you, you know, to embrace AI, to look at it from a perspective of seeing the opportunity, and not only that, the ability to move fast. Because you can see the opportunity, you can get people to buy into it, but if your organization is not able to move faster than your competitors, okay, in implementing AI, okay, I think that's what could potentially hurt you, you know?
that's good. So, all right. So phase one, awareness. We got to get people to become aware of it, aware of the impact it could have, but also aware of the opportunity that it could bring.
Right.
Phase two, people productivity. We walk, the AI becomes a tool to help the person be more effective. Now we move to phase three, process efficiency. Tell me more about that as a leader. Why is process efficiency so important?
Okay. So let's talk about it from a simple task. Okay. Uh, let's go back to the example of using it for commercial real estate. You're trying to implement it to underwrite property to see whether it's a good or bad deal, right?
Yeah.
Uh, First step, people awareness, getting your analysts to be aware of it. That's where the entire project either succeed or fail. If your analysts don't buy into it, it's out. It's out of the organization. Okay. So let's say you can get him to buy into it. Okay. The next step would be to get your analyst to use AI tools because now he'll be able to be 10x, 20x more productive than what he was before. Okay. Now come to the processes. Okay. And this is where it becomes another huge leadership challenge. Okay. Because you get through phase one, you get through phase two, now you got your analysts using AI tools. Now comes the big leap. Okay. And this one is where people start to choke on. Okay. Because now you got to convince your analyst to help build that automation that he knows is essentially replacing him 100%. Okay. Where processes come in, basically it means that, the thing that could potentially slow it down is the fact that someone is using the AI tools. So to make it go faster, if you remove the person and you have AI do it from beginning to end, that's where you really see the efficiency. But that's going to require you to convince your analysts that, and it takes a lot of leadership to do this because you got to provide new opportunities for your analysts now. Okay.
Well, was there for a moment, Elijah?
Mhm.
I say this often, opportunity is nowhere. Nowhere. Now, if you look at those 7 words, NOW, 7 letters, NOWHERE, most people, when they look at that, they see it that it says nowhere.
Mhm.
Opportunity is nowhere. But really, what I'm hearing from you is that people have to look at it and say, opportunity is now here.
Mhm.
And to do that, it takes I love when we're having this conversation around this because it takes leaders the ability to see things and to keep growing the organization. Because if you keep growing the organization, you can utilize your people within the organization to keep growing. But
Mhm.
if you have a zero sum game where you're looking to literally say, I want the same output. Well, the same output, you can get to that with a lot less dollars going in the form of the use of AI. But if we change the game and we play a bigger game, opportunities now here.
Yeah.
All of a sudden now, We're not looking for the outcome. We're doing outcome times 10x. And that's what
Exactly.
I think people need to be looking at is how do we drive outcomes, 10x outcomes with the use of AI so that our people now have greater opportunity because we're playing a bigger game.
Uh-huh. Exactly. Absolutely. So to fully automate it with AI, you need your buy-in from your key people that are involved in the process. So in this case, the analyst. You need your analyst to be fully on board, knowing fully well that he's helping to build a fully automated process where he's no longer involved in the underwriting. Okay. And that means as a leader, you got to show him his next path forward, that he's going to be either in charge of the entire automation process, or you're going to have him do deal making instead, or if he thinks that when he's done with this job he's going to get terminated because you don't need him anymore, then you just lost one of the most critical component in getting this to be successful.
Correct. And besides that, I think great leaders help people see how they can grow, how they could have more opportunity. So not only are they training or developing the AI model, but then they're going to know where they go. Once that AI model's trained, well, that's where this person's moving up and doing a bigger game, playing a bigger game in the organization. I think a lot of
Right.
organizations, they replace this way instead
Mhm.
of thinking about replacing this way. You replace them and then you move up in the organization.
Right. And that's that requires some level of reorganization. That requires you to rethink your business, because if your business is not growing to accommodate people moving up, that's where you're gonna have another problem.
100%. And then the last phase, and this is where we originally started, right? When we were looking at the 4 phases of AI. We didn't even know the 4 phases of AI. If we could be real, we weren't even
Hmm.
thinking of that lens until we started seeing the resistance of people. But then you go to the fourth phase, right? And the fourth phase is customized AI solutions that really give you a competitive advantage. That's where we began when we first started in this whole AI journey. It was
Hmm.
like, how do we create something that's so competitive? But because it was we were being so innovative, most people were still struggling with awareness, people productivity, process efficiency. They couldn't even think about competitive advantage. Tell me about the struggle we had. Tell our listener about the struggle we had, and then some of your ideas around that.
Right. So you're absolutely right. When we first started this journey, we saw, the end of the road. We saw it as, you could implement AI, you could do things your competitors could never do. Okay. And so, and we try to, to approach companies to do this, and we got a lot of pushback. Actually, it was because of the people part. People were not ready for it,
Yeah,
and either they felt threatened by it or they had other partnerships already in place, so it became really difficult, because first of all, their people were not even aware what AI was. None of them were using it within the organization. Their processes were definitely not AI driven, and then all of a sudden, we wanted them to embrace this, you know, new ability that the organization would have because of AI, and
well,
people just struggle with that.
yeah. So, we probably got about 5 more minutes. And Elijah, when it comes to AI and leading in an AI driven world, give our listeners one or two major things that they should be thinking about as they navigate an AI driven world.
I think if they just follow, our four-step process, uh, ask yourself as a leader, what are my followers' AI readiness level? You know, if you're not even aware of the AI readiness levels of your follower, I think that's something as a leader you need to know. Is my uh the 5 direct reports or the 10 direct reports that I have, are they against AI? Are they embracing AI? You know, do they have a positive outlook on AI or do they have a negative outlook on AI? This is what I mean by the AI readiness level of your follower,
Yeah.
you know? So as a leader, you need to know that. Then the moment you know that, then you can ask yourself the next question, am I empowering them to use AI in their job to increase their productivity?
Hmm.
If you are not doing it, then you may have a whole team of really positive people, but you're not actually seeing a result.
Yeah, that's
So then it's the people part is that am I empowering them to do that? Then I think the third step will be even harder for the leader. Am I creating opportunities so that they feel empowered to change the process to be AI driven, to make it more efficient, even if it means that they'll be out of a job?
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, because really at the end of the day, if they're doing it well, they're creating more opportunities so we can move the people now that no longer needed in that area to a greater opportunity.
Hmm.
That's all.
Yeah.
That's really good. We talk about awaken, empower, and equip. You awaken people to their potential, you empower them to want to reach that potential, and you equip them with the tools. It's kind of like that here. You awaken them to AI, you empower them to want to use AI, and then you equip them with all the different tools that are available in AI. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
exactly.
Well, Elijah, I want to thank you for joining us on the Leadership Table podcast. I think that your wisdom, your knowledge, your experience is tremendously valuable. Hey, if someone wanted to get in contact with you, what's your email address?
My email address is elijah.lowe@aimatrixsolutions.com.
There you go. So elijah.lowe@aisolutions.com.
AI
Hey,
Matrix Solutions.
sorry about that. AIMatrixSolutions.com. Well, Elijah, thank you so much. I think today's conversation was very valuable for people who are just grappling with the whole leading in an AI driven world. My friend, you are such a blessing to so many. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Chad. Talk to you soon. Bye.
All right. Be well. Hold on one second now.